ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in about a couple of minutes, so if we can invite you to take your seats. Thank you.
Okay. Wow, we've got... You know what? I'm not even sure that I need a microphone based on being able to project well enough, so I'm going to do that so I don't actually...
Hi. This is. Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Takahiro Nakamura from ispace. I am the director and CEO of the company. Thank you for your attendance today. And dear SGInnovate, thank you for inviting us to this great opportunity. I arrived just about 2 hours ago, and I came back tonight to Japan. Yes, ispace is a lunar exploration company focused on micro-robotics. I would like to begin with a short movie about our vision.
The universe's newest city is home to 1,000 people. And every year, over 10,000 come to visit. Only 20 years ago, this city didn't exist. It's the result of pioneers sending rovers, then discovering water. The hydrogen and oxygen separated from water becomes energy, creating the foundation for a fuel station. And with the fuel station came scheduled flights, followed by settlers. Soon, settlers required more diverse skills, attracting new specialists for construction, steel, communications, energy, transit, agriculture, medicine, and more. People travel from far and wide to see this new city. We call it Moon Valley. The moon is the new staging ground for your next level business. Expand our planet. Expand our future. ispace.
What do you think? This is our vision in 2040. Our slogan is expand our planet, expand our future, because our vision is to extend human presence beyond Earth. Our long-term goal to build a lunar fuel station on the moon. In space, water is an important propellant for spacecraft. As you know, by separating water into oxygen and hydrogen, we can create propellant for spacecraft, satellite, and rocket. As gas stations are established around the moon, we can revolutionize space transportation system. To get there, we will take 3 steps. First, we need to get to the moon and show the world our capability. The second, we would like to establish a transportation infrastructure to the moon and map lunar resources. Third, we will mine and process the lunar resources. Our service scope includes lunar delivery, lunar landing, and lunar surface exploration. Regarding launch service, this has already been the kind of red ocean because a lot of players, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and United Launch Alliance has been operating. This is our technology. We are making lunar lander and lunar rovers. Our lunar lander is used for customer payload service to the moon. In the beginning, it will carry up to about 30 kilogram payload to the moon for each mission. Along with customer payload, we will also bring our lunar rover to the moon to collect variable data from the lunar surface. Both our lander and rover are the smallest and lightless in human history. The small size allows us to make our hardware at a lower cost and higher frequency than traditional government spacecraft. We will provide three business services. One is the payload to the delivery service to the moon. The second is we will sell science data and resource data on the lunar surface. And third is sponsorship. We offer opportunity for advertising and marketing and brand promotion through technology collaboration with our customer. With the ultimate goal to establish a space resource development platform around 2030, ispace sees main three customer needs. The first is a big project by government and space agency. The second is R&D project by commercial industry like automobile, telecom, and electronics and materials, and so on. The third is marketing demand for media and commercial companies. By responding to these demands, we expect to see about several hundreds million US dollars by 2022. Now we have three offices, a Tokyo headquarters and Luxembourg and NASA Ames Research Park in United States. We have 66 employees from 30 countries, and we have one same dream. I will show team movies.
I really feel like we're sort of starting a new chapter in space.
ispace is a lunar exploration company, and then we are going to unlock resources in space. Many of the people are coming not only from space industry, but also from the other industry, like a business, consulting, and then also the automotive companies, software companies. We are gathering many of the talented people from every industry.
ispace is one of the only companies in the entire world which is focused on the next step. What's after the ISS? What's after GEO? How are we going to pave the way towards the next solar system or the future?
ispace is an opportunity to essentially do what you think is right. Nobody's going to tell you how to do it. You need to figure out the most efficient way of doing it.
We can commit not only business development, but also industry development.
I really would like to play some small part in writing that next chapter, and I think yeah, we're in the right place at the right time, absolutely.
Basically, I want to leave my footprint in space, not necessarily a physical footprint, but I want to contribute to space exploration, human habitation of space. I think it's important.
There is no limit. We never know what will happen, full of possibilities. That is beyond imagination.
I want to stay funky. That's part of the reason why I joined ispace and left an authentic and super bureaucratic company.
At ispace, we can speak freely and we can challenge ourselves all the time.
We can work together like a whole world.
I think ispace has the potential to be remembered as pioneering beyond Earth orbit industry. So really laying the groundwork, the foundations for an economy in space.
By extending life into outer space, by creating new economies, this is really on the edge, on the frontier, and helping to be a pathfinder in the future of exploration.
Last year, we raised 94.5 million US dollars in our Series A round. This is a record largest Series A in Japanese industry. The money will be used for our first 2 lunar mission. At the end of this September, we had launch announcement with SpaceX. Mission 1 will be held the middle of 2020, before Olympics Games. We plan to lunar orbiter mission in our first mission. This would be the first private lunar orbiter mission in the world. We will research and observe lunar surface from the orbit. Mission 2. Mission 2 will be held the middle of 2021. We plan to lunar landing and lunar surface exploration in our second mission. This would also be the first private landing and lunar exploration mission in human history. Finally, I will show our mission overview movie. Thank you for your attention. I will baton touch Mr. Yoshi.
So, hello everyone. Do I speak loud enough for the folks in the back? Is it okay? Without microphone? Cool. No? So, hello everyone. My name is Yoshi Ikeda. I'm from ispace business development team, and I'm taking over the presentation to take you through the progresses we have been making recently. So, we have gone through the topics on the left-hand side. So we talked about the vision of the ispace and also the fact that we fundraised $94.5 million at the beginning of this year. And also we have touched upon the engineering development recently. So I'm going to shift my discussion towards the recent progresses on the partnership. As mentioned earlier, we made an announcement at the end of September this year to partner with SpaceX, the Elon Musk company for the rocket launching. So they are carrying our robotics, including that one, lander. This is the one-fifth of the actual size of it. And then within the rover, we are carrying also the, you can see the small robotics, like this one, called rover, whose objective is to explore on the lunar surface to prospect if there is a meaningful amount of the resources or any of the lunar data we can capture. And then our focus is the last mile delivery from lunar orbit and the landing, and also prospecting on the moon, whereas the SpaceX is going to be the carrier from the Earth to the lunar. So we are focusing on the last mile delivery. And when we made an announcement at the end of September this year, we had a massive media exposure across the world, not only in Japan, but also, as you can see, a lot of the medias across the globe. And then the media exposure, according to our projection or calculation, it's something like equivalent of $10 million of the media exposure, which is a massive, massive exposure. So as you can see, quite a prominent names of the global media, BBC, Fox, AFP, and also newspaper, and also notably the Elon Musk, Twitter. This announcement, one of the top tweeting by the guy who is interested in the space technology. We also announced a partnership with Japan Airlines recently. So we will be assembling this lander there at their facility for engine maintenance room, whereas Japan Airlines also can benefit from enhancing their technology to be space qualified. That's kind of the partnership we're making. We also announced a partnership with a Draper. So for those who are not from space industry, the name might not be too familiar, but they are actually really, really famous non-profit organization from the US. They actually have 86 years of the experience in the space industry. And then what they do, they are famous for bringing the Apollo mission to the moon, actually. So this Apollo mission was actually realized by this company, Draper. And what they do is that their technology is focusing on what is called GNC, which is Guidance Navigation Control System, which is a really key pivotal technology for guiding and then for the navigation of that kind of lander for the lunar operation. And then we have signed an exclusive and long-term partnership with them. So our mission 1 and 2 in 2020 and 2021 is going to be using their technology for this key technology for the lunar mission. Another partnership announced with the Draper. So on left-hand side, you can see this is the roadmap of the NASA announced about their roadmap towards their manned mission to the moon until for the time horizon starting from 2018 to 2026. And then their idea is to have a base on the moon at some point in mid-2020, but they are also opening up their mission to the private company like us. And they announced a mission called CLPS, which stands for Commercial Lunar Payload Services, which essentially means the private company can participate in the bidding of the project to provide the lander and then last mile delivery, just like us. And then for that project, we have made a team up. We made up a team with Draper and ispace and also many other different companies to participate in the bidding projects. And then Draper, as mentioned earlier, is the pioneer for the lunar GNC system. And also other company like General Atomics, as the name suggests, they are the specialist in the nuclear reactor industry and also the aerospace as well. So they're providing kind of the technology for the assembly and also the payload integration of our lunar mission together with a company called the Spaceflight from the US as well. So we will be participating in the bidding to get this biggest opportunity by NASA. Quite a few of the partnership we have been able to announce recently, which also means to me the different perspective of things. The number one thing is that this partnership is actually opening up kind of the industry, not only for the space industry, but also the opportunity for the non-space industries as well. So it's not the game only for the space industry, but also the non-space industries or company as well. At the same time, we are kind of opening the door for not only for the public missions by NASA or JAXA, but also the opportunity for the commercial companies like us as well. So the partnership is opening the opportunity for many different angles. And after this recent announcement, what is our focus? As mentioned earlier, this Mission 1 and 2 in 2020 and 2021 is going to be the first ever lunar mission by private company in the world, so which is quite a big news for the world. Therefore, we have established a project name called Hakuto-R on the left-hand side. The Hakuto means the white rabbit in Japanese word. Why so? Because we Japanese see in the moon the pattern you can see on the moon. We associate that with the rabbit making a rice cake. I know in the other countries it's like an alligator, or it's like a old lady reading a book in the Europe, I think. But we Japanese see rabbit on the moon. Therefore, we name it after that folklore. And also the curves, the white line stands for the lunar orbit as well, so which also stands for our big challenge to go to the moon. And R here means the reboot, meaning anyone heard of the Google lunar mission before? So that was a race organized or sponsored by Google. Whoever goes to the moon and then send those move those robotics for a couple of 500 meters and send back the high definition images back to the Earth will be the winner to win the, I think the $3 billion or something, the massive amount of the prize. We were one of the 5 finalists of the race, but unfortunately the race was canceled because none of the finalists was able to procure the rocket from the Earth to the lunar orbit. And then at that time, our focus was focusing on only on the robotics on the moon. Therefore, we have just decided to also develop the lander, and also we have decided to partner with the SpaceX, those kind of established company, to make it happen. Therefore, we named the program called Hakuto-R to kind of signify our re-challenge for this mission. And then we are now trying to find a lot of the partners to join our mission, the biggest challenge to the moon. So the things we are offering to the partner is many of the things. One of a lot of the scheme is, for example, the branding opportunity. Like I mentioned, it's going to be the big news for the globe. Therefore, we are thinking about providing those real estate on the robotics for the branding opportunity of the companies, which is something like this. Singapore Grand Prix here. But to me, it's not just about the real estate for the advertisement, but also it's about making excitement, because it's going to be the really big challenge. Therefore, we are also looking for the partners so that we can provide this great opportunity, which is the Mission Control Center. We are developing this Mission Control Center on the outskirts of Tokyo in Japan, and then we can obviously use those real estate for the branding, or even the, I don't know, the countdown for the mission as well, so that we can engage a lot of the people for the excitement. Or even this one, the partner can name the landing sites on the moon. We can choose the site to land, and then it's also open for us to name those landing sites. Or even this idea. Yeah, when I first saw it, I reacted the same way, really. But it's real. We saw the movie, and then still I'm having a difficulty to associate the movie with the actual things happening only 2 years from now. But it's real, it's happening. And then our technology can enable this kind of big idea, like taking a selfie on the moon with the background of Earth. Not only excitement, but also we'd like to provide some intrinsic value for the customers, like the joint technology mentioned earlier. For example, this one. This is our partner from the last Google lunar mission. We had a partnership so that they can provide their technology, and then they can also have our mission as an opportunity to enhance their technology for the space qualified level of the technologies. We worked with AU, that's the consumer brand for KDDI, which is the telecommunication company in Japan. Also, you could see Suzuki on there. It's a automobile OEM company, Semidyne for glue, and also Zoff, actually the glass is, but their material was used for the wheel to actually rover around the moon. We also provide a payload, meaning we carry customers' things to the moon, and then the partners can use those payloads for many different reasons. Number one is the entertainment purpose. For example, we can capture the movie or pictures by carrying the camera of the partners, and then the company can use for entertainment reasons. Number two, space qualified technology, just like we saw in the slide earlier. We can use their technology to carry to the moon, and then the company can claim that it's a space qualified technology. The third one is going to be interesting, the pharmaceutical or life science reasons. For example, JAXA, Japanese Space Agency, is doing some experimental project to carry the protein. And if you bring the protein in the super low gravity, the protein can be crystallized in a really, really well crystallized way. Then you can analyze for the development of new medicines, like the disease called ALS, which is the disease for the muscle. And then those, let's say, specimen can be used for those pharmaceutical and life science reasons as well. The last one is we can also capture the data for lunar environment, like not only the movie, but also the temperature, the reserves of the resources, the hydrogens or radiations. Many of the things we know conceptually, but we don't know based on the actual data. So we should be able to provide those data using the payload capacity. Other ideas, we call it the virtual moon. Before flying to the moon, we could also develop the moon on the virtual space. And then we are now developing this kind of virtual reality. You use the virtual reality device, and then you can see how our robotics can be controlled on the moon. We can simulate so that we can enhance the engagement of our customers to see and intuitively understand what kind of the mission would be look like. Are we dreaming? The answer is no, because we did it. So for the previous Google Lunar mission, we provided that kind of partnership opportunity to many of the Japanese company. At that time, limited only for the Japanese company. The companies like Semidyne for glue company, Suzuki for automotive, Recruit for the big data analysis, Japan Airline, Zoff for glasses, and IHI for space industries. And also other media partners like Tokyo Broadcasting Service stations and also the Asahi newspaper. And each of them had its own reasons to be the partners. AU, for example, on left-hand side on top, they were interested in the super distance telecommunication infrastructure for their future business development. Therefore, they used our robotics as their vehicle to pave the way for their new space business development, and the other example as well. And then they also did those kind of innovative approaches, but also they advertised making their own movies or some other creatives, just something like this. And I can show one of the example by Suzuki company. Could you volume up, please? It's okay, I can add the narration with myself. So some of the countries are looking at this pattern to see donkey. Some other countries see old lady reading a book on the moon. So Suzuki is promoting its own brand using our brand or robotics and then making those kind of movies. To suggest their technology is space qualified as well. That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. Then using the media partners, they also made a newspaper advertisement like this to report their mission. To wrap it up, our mission brand called Hakuto Art is based on the three things we are offering to the partners. Number one, the joint technology developments. Second one is kind of the entry ticket for their own space business. And the last one is the corporate and the marketing and branding opportunities. What does it mean? So Hakuto are inviting partners as the invitation to their lunar business, but I would even say this is an invitation for lunar industry or the building up an ecosystem on the moon, just as Mr. Nakamura mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Why? Because we are envisioning this is happening by 2040. Together with this beautiful country here. And the statement you could see at the beginning, at the top is one global team to the moon. This is our cultural statement, and I'm hoping the Singapore could join as a partner for our exciting journey to the moon. That was it, but last remarks from myself is that before getting to know ispace and its adventure last summer, the moon was the object for me, like folklore or cultural things. But after knowing the ispace and its own exciting challenge, the moon looks differently. So I got a new frame to see the moon, and I'm pretty much enjoying it, and I hope I was able to provide a similar kind of the insight to see the moon differently from today's on. And then I'm staying here in Singapore until Friday, so if we can have opportunity to talk, and then that would be great, we can set up a meeting as well. And then the last but not least, thank you, big thank you for the team from SGInnovate, and especially thanks for Jing for making this happen. And then that was all the presentation I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll be sure to use the microphones from now on as well, as we're live streaming the event for others that aren't here with us today. So just to kick off the discussions, I mean, there was a lot of presentation here about partnerships and really opening up an entire new commercial space industry and getting a lot of non-space companies to pivot or reorient at least some of their products and their development towards the space industry. So I'm really curious, how a lot of those discussions have been, how excited or how much pull there is from various different corporates and different groups, and how much education there's been from ispace and really kind of showing the value that they can get and how they perceive that value.
So,
so I'll make this more specific to help get the conversation going. JAL was one of the partners that you mentioned, and having a production facility in their operational space as well. And part of that being to kind of teach them about the space technology, what's going to be going into space qualified components and technologies. So from their end, maybe, how do they see the value or their new participation in commercial space technology?
Okay, still a little bit difficult question for us, to be honest. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Junpei Nozaki. I'm in charge of finance control at ispace. And maybe I can discuss some topic of discussion through what we did through Series A financing. And maybe Nakamura-san can also tell you something about recent discussion with JAL, for example. So in terms of JAL, it's not always start from a very short-term return, to be honest. Kind of, of course, they wish they can do something like technological, alliances, or maybe, more like business return. If that is a story, that's going to be great. However, it's not always. It does not always start like that. So last December when we did our Series A finance, the timing was really interesting because the movement was really shifting. All companies are starting to see about space industry as something attractive, and there is something happening in space industry, so they all feel they need to involve in that new big wave of change, of dynamic industry changes. So so what they started to think about is, first of all, maybe they can first stimulate their employees by doing something together with us. And that's because for JAL employees, because flight industry is always, especially in Japan, they struggle in a kind of a narrow Japanese demand. So they need some new angle, and and also because the topic is similar, like doing transportation is a business. So this can be some, story can connect to the new things. Then it started, but little by little, they start to think about what can leverage their business and more have some concrete connection with their business. And then the first step was, as we announced recently, the facility they're providing at Narita. We are going to use that for our under construction. So that's how the story always starts. Not always like a short-term things, but.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I certainly wouldn't. How's that going to be? Okay. I certainly wouldn't expect anyone looking at lunar exploration to have short-term goals. It is, as Steve mentioned earlier, a long road in deep tech in general, and especially with space technologies. So given the complexity of what ispace ultimately wants to set out to do and the longer-term vision helping to establish a lunar base, fuel station, etc. You can't do everything on your own, obviously. And you've definitely had quite a bit of success attracting major investment, a number of very large, substantial partners. How do you see other industries, so maybe what areas in particular, whether it be automotive, entertainment, etc., playing into the longer term ispace vision?
So I guess the answer can be everything you can see in the town, any industries, because our vision is to build a Moon Valley whereby 10,000 people visit frequently, 1,000 people actually live in there. So everything humankind needs should be there. So, but there's obviously the sequence or focuses which industries comes in, like infrastructure-related industries will be the key to establish the basis for the human being as well. But also, I think the financing industry will be also the key as well, because the investment level is going to be really, really big. And then always the financing is the big challenge as well, but the big opportunity as well. And then to add to the point he made, the fast mover advantage is great in this industry, because first of all, the entry barrier is high, so you have to go beyond the barrier, and then, but as soon as you enter that industry, the advantage you can enjoy is going to be massive as well.
In addition to that, we need three industry. One is communication industry. This is communication from Earth to the Moon is a kind of lifeline to our business and our technology. And second is the construction industry. We need to make some building or infrastructure on the Moon. So this technology is mandatory. And third is sensing industry. From the short-term view, we need to map lunar resources, especially water and rare earth and rare metal. So we need sensor technology.
Okay, yeah, a number of industries where Singapore can likely make some contribution. Before we talk about Singapore in particular, the industry is going through a major transition, right? So at least the last couple of questions, we've talked a little bit more about the private side in particular, but space exploration, satellite technology is shifting much more towards the private sector from what was a very government and public sector exclusive, essentially, area not that long ago. So now with your continuing work with NASA, JAXA, ESA, et cetera, how do you see that relationship between public and private continuing to play out in the now commercialization of space exploration?
So yeah, you're right. You're perfectly correct. So I think the relationship between space agencies and private companies are clearly shifting. But the important point is, it is not something we are sharing a pie. Like, it's not something that we are kind of competing with each other. Rather, we are really a partnership with them. And that is really their intention to, they like to, they like to share some of the role to the private company if we can do that. Now, the relationship recently we are having with space agencies is really kind of partnership relationship. So the basic purpose is slightly different. We, as a private company, can do more challenges and do more aggressive challenges, kind of frequently commercial-based business. However, in terms of space agencies, they, of course, they clearly have some background of obligation from their countries, people, government policies, everything. So what we focus on is more like deep space things, like rare mission things. So it's really kind of we are partnering together. And they would also want to see what we can achieve from, what we can obtain from our missions. For example, like we can provide some data through our mission for their larger missions. So that kind of complementing relationship is happening around. So we really do have a very, very much aggressive discussion. And although we are a small startup company in Japan, compared to that size of company, our relationship is very much business-like and very much serious with space agencies.
Now we have the contract with JAXA and Luxembourg government for middle term. And from the point of government or space agency view, they can't fail. They can't fail because they use tax money. So they use our launch opportunity to use for their R&D. This is essential the concept, the collaboration between private company and space agency.
Okay, no, so very interesting. So it's kind of allowing the space agencies to share some of the higher risk aspects of developing the industry and new missions. Okay. Again, at any point, if anyone wants to jump in with a comment or question, just give me a signal and I'll keep my eyes out. Yes?
Well, thank you very much. I think that the presentation is fantastic. It's magnificent, and I think thank you very much for coming to Singapore and bringing your proposition to Singapore. But basically, on the cardinal factor, I yet to understand what would be your expectation in terms of precondition. Are you setting any precondition for startup and would be interested party? Do you have any non-disclosure agreement that you think that you're willing to extend? Because I noticed that when you go to the moon that far, but basically, fundamentally, on the ground, there's a lot of missing links. There's a lot of uncovered thing and a lot of, I think that, oversight. So the question is that you can't talk about it unless you can see whether you people are very forward-looking, kind of very hungry for real innovation. And I also noticed that the Japanese representative that's supposed to be backing you up are still not there too. So the question is that it's not just from Singapore, but also from Japan itself. The Japan Incorporated is very few names that you have. So is there a possibility of the kind of collaborative partnership? And the question, the money factor, you are a startup, we also are a startup. And the question is that different ecosystem, different dynamic, different dimension. But I think there's a lot of missing things that we could contribute. And I think that it is within our spheres of interest. And I think that if we can establish the mutual beneficial possibility, I'd love to be. Thanks a lot.
So maybe let me reframe that a little bit. What has your approach been, and what have you found to work? So whether it's with maybe a startup company or a new country, and then also some of the larger space agencies, SpaceX, for example, those initial steps in starting a partnership, those initial discussions, opening up the relationship. How has that experience been for you? Is it very official with immediate NDAs being signed? Is it on the sidelines of an event and having a beer or two together, which I can imagine Elon Musk being more on that end of the spectrum? I'm just interested then to get kind of your take on that initial relationship building.
Right. So maybe Nakamura-san can add on my point. But so first of all, we are the company incorporated in Japan, and management team are all Japanese, by the way, and our investor, specifically current Series A investors, almost all Japanese investor. But that is, for ourselves, that is only a first step, because we all know that this space industry cannot limit inside Japan market. So from initial point, initially, our management team always looking for the global demand and also global investors. Everything is global perspective. Based on this reason, we currently has two subsidiaries, as Nakamura-san mentioned. One is Luxembourg and one is US. And we have already studied a global construction for this, our business. And to be more concrete, we have initially started discussion in Europe with several government. So we have already received some grant from Luxembourg government, which together with them, we are going to do the partnership experimental mission together with them going forward. Of course, we do have a contract, MOU, do have an NDA between them. That's a quite huge relationship with them. And so governmental demand will be a very important basis of our starting of our business. However, on top of that, a private payroll is very, very important because we need to together create the industry. So we are really aggressively starting discussion with many corporate players based on NDAs, and we are going to provide more detail what menu we can provide. So that type of activities we are really, really focusing on and doing globally. Do you want to add some point, Nakamura-san? Okay. That's almost it.
If I can add something, I'm actually based in Luxembourg to look after European customers, so it's always very helpful to have a pint of beer with the customers to start the conversation. But more fundamentally, the support from like you guys, the big brands, it's always really, really helpful. Especially, we're not only focusing on the space industry or governmental customers, we're also focusing on the commercial customers as well, or partners as well. In that case, we're not known yet. And then always the help from such a big brand is a really big leverage to start the partnership.
Very, very glad we can be helpful.
Hi. You mentioned about Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has announced his plan to launch his first humans into Mars by 2024, I think. So my question is very simple: do you have a similar plan to do what you're doing on the moon on Mars?
I think the moon is similar to Singapore. As you know, Singapore is called the hub airport in the world transportation network. And we assume the moon is kind of hub in space transportation. So at first step, we need to explore the moon. But our vision is expand our planet, expand our future. For humankind, is more sustainable and more habitable zone is moon compared to the Mars compared to the moon. So this is my opinion, not consensus. So after the moon, I would like to move the Mars.
Natural part, focusing on first several questions on the but the vision is same. if there's a chance, we're looking forward to. By the way, we do have a many discussion opportunity, and we do have a discussion with many companies around.
So just, I'm gonna follow up on my own for a second and then go back to the audience. There's a comment about, Singapore being the regional, hub as far as air travel, and linking that a little bit with the moon and respect to moving on to Mars. So how do you see, Singapore in particular, playing a role in the commercialization of space tech from a, let's say, a higher level view? Are there particular technologies or industries or partnerships that you see Singapore being very well positioned to leverage towards iSpace's overall vision?
So I think, actually, this is a really initial major event, first time for us. However, from 1.5 years ago, we started our discussion with several companies in Singapore, and we are more and more we're feeling like there is a strong potential here in Singapore. By saying that, I think, as we all know, Singapore attracts many potential companies in terms of industries, and all companies are really ambitious to develop new innovative technologies. So that really matches with our concept. That's what we believe. And there are not so many private lunar companies in world. Several companies in US, several companies in Europe, but not major company in Asian region. So I hope you guys can really leverage this opportunity doing together with us, and we really hope to do together with us. You guys do too. One example I really want to mention is Nakamura-san mentioned about constructing is one key. So one of our shareholders is Shimizu Construction. Some of you might know the name, but it's one of the major Japanese constructing company. And they was the last investor who joined our Series A. And it really took time to expand the story together with them. But they have 20 years of R&D experience for this space area. But now they have seriously involved in this business, and they have seriously created new business development for the space. So this was a really key-changing moment for them. So I really hope something similar can do in Singapore too.
I would like Singapore to use us as a laboratory for future deep tech innovation. Pharmaceutical, for example, for the things I mentioned, petrochemical company for the future lunar business, construction company, and all the investors predominantly are now Japanese company. Their intention was not only for the capital gain, but also for their next step of the businesses. So use us as an experiment or the step to pave the way for the further innovation. Therefore, not specific industry, but would like us to use as a laboratory.
I'm Karin, CEO of Spaceport Sweden. I was quite curious about how your idea originated, and also the role of X Prize as a competition to really help inspire radical innovation. So if you can share a bit of that, please.
Quite not easy question. I mean, because it was a very tough moment, to be honest, in terms of technology development. But so maybe I should answer in this way. So maybe the fact what we are doing through Google Lunar X Prize, and I believe this is what exactly Google and X Prize Foundation expected through this challenge. But It's really a new innovation from the private perspective. So what I mean that the space agency, so space world was for a long time, it was filled with very conventional ideas. Well, I would not say in a negative way because it really helped us to, innovate. So it really helped us to see human beings, a new world. However, it's a too big challenge, too money consuming challenge, and they really requires very high level of safety. So it really goes really traditional things. However, we as a company started from 4 or 5 people with no funding, so we need to do something with low money. So we really, for example, this rover, we think about how in an easier way or how in a low-cost way can tackle this new space area. And we did it because we really had discussion with many small companies around Japan who has a really high technology, and we use many COTS, commercial off-the-shelf things, to lower the cost. So that kind of new innovation has been, born. I think that's a very important point that this XPRIZE race has provided in this world, I think. And now we are in the next phase to, leverage this experience to the next phase. So that's what we expect.
The Google should have been able to do the things we are doing on their own, but they decided to run the race instead. That's my opinion. Why? Because Google thought it's key to invite many different players to make industries. And then we thought it's a good opportunity as well. That's the origination. And that's why I'm highlighting the importance of the partners to join us.
Hi, I'm Klaus Nemse from BP's Digital Innovation Team here in Singapore. My question is one about the core IP and competency of ispace, because you were explaining that a lot of the key components comes from Draper for the software, some of the hardware components. So what exactly is kind of the key competency, the key IP that ispace, is it more an integrator, or are there certain components that you develop in-house?
One of our competitive advantage is miniaturization. So now we have some patent how to miniaturize our hardware, but to miniaturize hardware, there are a lot of facts, for example, thermal technology and to see radiation technology and communication technology. So they are our strong IP.
Hi, we take from Euromonitor. How and where do you test your lunar device? How and where do you test your lunar device, the landing device?
Thank you. Well, if we can bring them on the moon, that's going to be great, of course. But so we do many tests, by the way. So, well, we sometimes rent some place for JAXA, like many universities, where they have a kind of specific facility for example, like a radiation test or like a vibration test, so on. So we really do our testing occasionally, and well, but the thing is, we have several people from traditional space companies too, but that type of tests can really cover what we really need for actual space challenges. So. That's all we're doing. Okay.
Hello, thank you very much for the presentation today.
I think your first mission is going to be in 2020, where you have an orbit around the moon, and you're gathering some data from the moon to send it back to Earth. I was wondering how you plan on sending all that data back to the Earth. Do you have any innovation in the communication technology?
This is not innovation technology. We use S-band and X-band. This is ordinary communication technology developed by the space agency and government.
Also answering partially to your question earlier, the competitive advantage, I consider ispace as an orchestrator or OEM, meaning all the technology are commercially available in public, key technology, IP owned by us, but who orchestrated, not only for technological packaging, but also business packaging as well, fundraising as well, making the first revenue as well, because nobody has done it. As an orchestrator, and then to answer to your question as well, we are using the technology that's available to lower the cost, which is a key to make it a viable business, but we're focusing on being OEM, let's say.
So it's really important one point because I wish we have our CEO here today, but Takeshi Hakamada, he frequently says, well, although he has a technological background, he does not too much rely on technology things because he believes that's exactly, in some way, preventing this innovation going private. So yes, when he said orchestrator, yes, we are trying to focus on more in an integrator of many available technologies, but it's quite, there are so many subsystems and also miniaturization. We really need more, capabilities. So that type of thing, various things exist to us. And so, but again, not too much relying on core, basic technology. We are more like an integrator. Another thing is, he mentioned about business model, but one important aspect we have going forward is about the data. So because we are going to the moon, we have not only lander, but we also have a rover, already created rover. This is very important to get many data. And by these acquiring data, through several missions, frequent missions, we like to secure as much as possible inside us, of course, selling to the market, and create some value-added data that is going to be really useful for market. And also, we really believe that's going to be our strong advantage to differentiate from our competitors. So that's
I would have a question about the business model. I think that you mentioned a 500 million potential market sometime into 2020s. And in the same time, as far as I know, there will be no plan to have people on the moon before the second half of the 2020s. I mean, there are some ideas of ESA having a moon village, but now the trend seems to be to have an orbital station around the moon instead. So to what extent does it impact your business model, and what are the next steps after mission 1, mission 2, which are still very small-scale missions, to be able to bridge between now until there is an actual return of man on the moon, and second, a bit longer term, how do you make the moon valley happen, starting from the small-scale design you have now until having mining, building, you name it?
Okay. So maybe two points. So number one is about our mission frequency. So starting from mission 3, we'll start a full-fledged commercial mission, which means we are going to gather more clients' payload on our lander. And more frequent mission means we are expecting like 3 or 4 times mission per year. So that's one. Frequency is important factor for us. And then in midterm, little by little, we are going to expand our payload mass size. So currently, this size have a 30 kilogram payload mass, but gradually from, we expect from mission 4, this is going to be kind of a double size, 60 kilogram mass. And then in the midterm, we will expand this to 200 kilogram mass size. That's our business plan right now. Now, this plan is based on quite in line with what currently we see from the many announced projects from global space agencies. So little by little, these space agencies are going to expand their payload size, and along with that, we will also expand our business payload capacity mass. So that's our basic business model right now. And and maybe a little bit more about the demand, because maybe I talk too much about the governmental space agencies' demand. However, as we mentioned, I think it's a step-by-step approach, really, because for private companies, I think it's going to be a really kind of a scary thing to take a first step, put something on the payload and go, for example, like construction company. If we leave private construction company alone on the moon, they'll be really, frightened, of course. But that's not the case we are expecting, because again, the big structure shifting is happening right now. Space agencies are trying to put their role to the private company. So what if, imagine like next space agency, some space agencies, if they try to make a moon base on the moon, they will starting from using our service, doing some experimental things, put something on the moon. But if full-fledged construction is happening, they will, do a competition, do a contest, asking many private companies who can do this mission. And at that time, private company will be, that's the time they can really, join this mission. So our strategy here is, by then, we will ask many private companies to make many credit before the actual timing happens. So Shimizu's construction, for example, through our several missions, they will little by little make many records and accumulate the credit, and they can get a big opportunity at the time space agencies make a big mission. That's kind of story is scenario we are looking at. Does that answer your question?
For example, JAXA has already announced, okay, the ISS is going to stop its operation, I think 2023 or 2024, shifting to cislunar space. Like you said, NASA is envisioning the manned station in the cislunar space from the Earth orbit to the moon. And then they are also trying to commercialize a lot of the project, inviting us for providing kind of the pivotal role in it. JAXA, Japanese Space Agency, for example, is trying to take a module within that bigger vision for, let's say, fuel station module. And then that can be the good portal to invite us, like a commercial private company, to be joining. And then to answer directly to your question, when that tipping point is coming over, I think that project is one of the tipping point coming over or already prominent. And also the CLIPS project I mentioned, CLPS project by NASA, it's also in the time frame of until 2026. So I would say in coming 10 years or 5 years, it's going to be the tipping point coming. But who will be the first? That will be the key question to answer because the first mover advantage is gigantic. So tipping point for us, it's coming 2 years.
So, you know, yes, your comment is very, very sharp, I think. I mean, always, only like together with SpaceX and private, that's not the creation of real economy. So at the end of the day, ultimately, yes, private, only by private companies, there needs to be one great economy there. And from our perspective, based on the business model, that is, again, the key is resource. Resource utilization will be the real key. So as you see, first, Nakamura-san shows animation of Moon City. That is our moon, we call it, by the way, moon ballet, by the way. Moon ballet concept is, that is 2040. That's the timing we expect. And to create a city, we need an economy, and that is a water resource economy, that like a fuel station things. So from our business model, that is the timing we are going to start that seriously starting resource utilization things is from 2030. That's our milestone. So 2020 is our starting of our mission. So through 10 years, we are going to create data, gather data, and create this weekend transportation mission. And all of our clients will also gather data ready for 2030. Then 2030, we are going to start moving to the real water resource business. That is a step-by-step kind of business story we are thinking about.
I think the pure private industry raised around 2025 or 6. There's 3 key success factors. One is we need to map lunar resources on the moon based on our mission planning. And second is the legal thing. So you can. The resource ownership is now discussing in the world. For example, United States and Luxembourg have accepted private ownership on the moon, but the other countries are discussing. But the concept is basically accepts the ownership in the asteroid or moon. And third is, of course, quantity of resources. And in last August, NASA and Brown University announced the fact they found the fact water on the moon. So I think these 3 key success factors is to rise the pure private industry in around 2025.
I think we'll take one more audience question.
Hi, I'm Anmol from Nepal. I'm the national point of contact for Nepal in SGAC. My question to you is, have you taken into consideration the ethical implications as you plan to colonize Moon? The ethical implications? As in who get to use the resources on Moon and how much of it, I mean, are we heading to a space? Are we heading, I mean, how do we use the resources on Moon?
So I think that builds on exactly what you were just talking about. So maybe if you can just elaborate a little bit more on what the discussions are at the moment and what the picture looks like as far as, you know, that legal aspect or ethical aspect in that context for resource Utilization, allocation, ownership.
So the question was, to sum it up, how do we envision the resource utilization should be on the moon? What's our assumption and our vision? Was it right?
I think especially how it might be shared amongst different stakeholders, whether they be countries, commercial entities, etc.
So starting from the legal framework, there's a, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a domestic law in United States and in Luxembourg, which allows for private companies to prospect and own the resources. That does not mean ownership of the land. That is prohibited by the international, I think, the law as well. Therefore, it's like fishing a tuna in the public oceans. Private company like us has a right and a legal framework by Luxembourg and also US to do resource utilization and ownership as well. In terms of the sharing within the, let's say, our company, the discussion has not yet been closed out, but we're thinking, we're having a bigger picture. I mean, like he mentioned, we want to be the portal for the travelers or the rockets to go to the deeper space. So we want to be Singapore, providing those resources equally for the economic reasons for any players. So we want to be as open platform as possible. That's our vision. Did I answer to your question?
Okay, I've got one last resource question of my own. So, we talked a lot about the importance of resource and, in some cases water, et cetera. Getting to your longer term, 2040 mission will also require more short-term financial resources. You just finished a fairly large Series A recently. So what are your plans for, future investment, going forward?
Right. So it's always kind of headache to us, by the way, to be honest. So space challenge from startup private company. Of course, technology is a huge challenge for us. So we need to gather many engineers from global. But moreover, to be honest, financing, funding, how to capital our company is much more huge problem because startup normally does not have a credit, and normally space challenge really needs a high capital cost. So we are really honored to do this Series A funding last December. However, we are continuously always thinking about how to fund next financings. So by saying that, I think of course. Series B or C, something continuous private money is really one of the key focus for us. So and again, as I mentioned, Series A was structurally made by Japanese investors. However, I can tell you that even at the Series A timing, we are making contacts to global investors, and we are really aggressive. We are eager to get global money for this challenge, and along with that, we are, well, I would say very, very carefully about this, but we are always thinking about making our company go listed as one of the options. By saying this, I don't want to mislead any people, but because making company go listed has many pros and cons always. However, it's really important for the company like startups to always thinking about to keep options to the huge funding. So we are always looking at several measures to fund our company. One is Series B funding. One is, of course, about making sales revenues, making sponsorship, and also making our companies go ready to go listed. Anytime we can go listed, is making our company be ready for that is very important. So that type of things are the measures we are daily focusing on.
With that, thank you very much again. It's been a very enlightening and quite interesting discussion for me, and I hope for the audience as well. Now we'll move on to the next very exciting centerpiece of the morning and the demonstration of the rover.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think if I add some explanation here, now we are using this user interface to move this rover. So it's really important. The visualizing thing is very important because, imagine this is on the moon. Now we are fine. We can see this moving here. But if this goes to the moon, we can never see what's happening here. So maybe some people feel this movement is too slow. But this is really important. If this moves too fast, it fell down into the crater. That's the end. We can never recover it. So slowly by slowly, if you can see, there's a two CCD camera here. So this shows. This is the other side. So this is the side over there. So by looking at this scene.
Hakto's lunar exploration rover has been developed with a fully
we move little by
optimized
little
design to achieve the mission. Launching the rover
so with
costs
one
$1
kind of
million
touch,
per kilogram.
it moves like a
Therefore,
1 meter.
mass is an important consideration.
Then stop, and then it will send the capture image to the Earth, and we checked it, and then again we start moving. That is a process we always take. And also one other aspect is about the sound here. The sound is also important because again inside the space area we can never have a sound or like whales or like a machine moving because they don't have air on the moon, so they don't have sounds. But it's from the mission operation point of view, it's really important that people can feel they are actually moving this rover. So sound is also very important, that we can actually feel that the rover is arrive. And this high sound, like this shows a sound, yeah, this is the sound of this rover is sending a telemetry to us, so we can be sure about we are having a telemetry for this rover. So at this moment, this is a ground model, so we have a battery inside, but we also do have, if you can see the side, there's a black panel, there is a solar panel to get the sunlight. Yes. Sorry, I'm a financial guy, by the way. So,
the lunar surface is covered with regolith, a fine powdered sand. The rover can drive stably even when it is on a slope or turning with anti-skid wheels. And the limb structure reliably supports.
赤外線センサーなんですか？
It also detects obstacles with an infrared
Radiate.
system. 4 cameras capture high-definition images
that makes
in
sense.
360 degrees,
Yeah.
which are transmitted to Earth with data compression technology. The cameras also detect driving conditions. To meet the challenges, Hector has applied intensive problem solving, using its multidisciplinary expertise to deliver high-quality designs. Overcoming extreme environmental factors, the team looks forward to completing the mission.
Yes, I think that's basically the same answer that I explained. So we try to be little by little movement because always, so right now we have a real-time telemetry things, but when we disclose the moon, it's like 5 seconds, 6 seconds? 5 or 6 seconds time lag between moon and we have a distance between us and moon. So we cannot let him go very smoothly. Just little by little step is something we intentionally made it. Okay. And maybe one other point is one other point is about this wheel. So as we discussed, we try to make this rover into very lightweight and also very low cost. So this wheel is very kind of a unique technology we have. So this material is Rutem is something familiar to you? Rutem is so Zoff was an eyeglass company who was supporting to us. It's very lightweight, but it really has a plastic things. Autumn, yes, thanks. So that wheel is made by Autumn, and it's very lightweight but strong. And so, but creating that shape was really, really hard task for us. So we found out kind of 70 years old master, Japanese, technology master in a Japanese suburb, and he created this for us. It was a really hard challenge for us. And for example, this 角度ってなんていうんですかね? Yeah, the angle of this rover. This also somehow has an aspect because this is structured the most efficient way to get the sunlight based on where we are going to land. So, if you change the landing site, then the sunlight angle will always changes. So we'll again change the angle to get the most effective way. So that type of technology I use it. Power? I mean the consumption. Yeah. Right.
This product lifetime in 2 weeks. Because the lunar temperature is from minus 150 degree to the plus 120, 50. this battery is a lithium liquid battery. So the around minus 100 degrees, the lithium battery is broken. And the moon one day is about 28 days. And so, so the day is 2 weeks. We will plan to land the sunrise, and this we will operate 2 weeks.
So to do the overnight mission, we need to have a development for a battery to endure the lower temperatures nighttime. But that is one of the top priority for next development, to be honest. Solid battery, 固体電池って何て言うんでしたっけ? Solid 固体電池. Solid battery. I think one of the key answers is solid battery, if I'm correct. So batteries always have some liquid inside, right? But that will cause a problem when the temperature goes like minus 150. But the solid battery, I forgot the name, sorry, exact wording, but solid battery is not liquid, it has a hard fixed material inside, so it can endure the cold nighttime. So that is one of the key technology we need. But currently, many Japanese companies, or of course the global companies, are kind of in a challenge to make that in the commercial way. So that's one important technology. Used on Earth. 難しいですね。業界に使えるものを生み出したかっていう質問ですね。
Basically, this technology is useful for plant